You may begin, Saloni.
Please unmute me. Yeah.
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay. So this is the second time we are meeting in the ISDSI Global Talk Series. I'm very honored to be a part of this dialogue for the second time again. And let me extend my hearty welcome to all the attendees along with the eminent dignitaries who are here. Welcoming you, your host, Professor Saloni Sinha from BIMTech. This is a session by Nagpur and with BIMTech and SIBM Hyderabad as partners. It's hosted by ASMA, and the topic is High Tech, High Touch MBA Program, Pedagogy and Delivery Models, Reflection and Disruptions. To be very honest, as a teacher, I'm really looking forward to the session because it's very essential for all of us to learn and grow together. So the idea is to come up with reflections from all across, from stakeholders and visionaries, educational leaders, so that we build more models which are relevant in the future days, like Professor Maitri says, in the fluid world, which helps us sustain. So to be very honest, once again, this is not just a forum for all of us to listen to these people, but it is also a forum which should make us more curious as to how we can further enrich this entire activity that we have started. So this one evening where you can see the kind of luminaries who are with us. It's a real honor for me to be with all of you along with such dignitaries. So welcome everybody. On the eve of our freedom movement, where we are celebrating 75th year of our freedom, I think we need our education system to also get freed from several biases and reach up to the last mile. As you all know, that ASMA is the host, and it is a thought leadership platform which helps through the power of digital media. It helps in strategizing, building roadmaps, and there are a huge community of more than 15,000, leading partners, universities, schools, decision makers, and it's more than a lakh strength of academic community. So it's really a huge honor for me to be a part of this. As you all are aware, ISDSI Global Talk Series is a precursor to a conference which is going to be organized in the month of December, the ISDSI Global 2021 conference. It is important for me this moment to welcome all the dignitaries who are joining us today as eminent speakers. Mr. C.P. Gurnani, who is the Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director of Tech Mahindra, and he's also the Chairman of Board of Governors at IIM Nagpur. Mr. Richard Rekhy, former CEO of Kpmg in India. Mr. Balachandran, who is founder, chairman of the board and dean emeritus of Great Lakes Institute of Management. Dr. Ganesh Natarajan, the chairman of IWF World. And Mr. Ramachandran Natarajan, who is the associate dean, College of Business in Tennessee Tech University in USA. I would like to hand this over to Professor Jain to tell us more about ISDSI Global as a forum, as well as the conference and the talk series. Over to you, Dr. Ravi Kumar Jain.
Thank you so much, Professor Saloni, for kickstarting the session. So happy for this second webinar in the 5-webinar series of ISDSI Global. Today's guests, Mr. C.P. Gurnani, Mr. Richard Rekhy, Professor Balachandran, and our dear friend and guide for ISDSI, Professor Natarajan, and the Sutradhar of the idea of ISDSI, Professor Bhimrai Maitri, and all the viewers who are participating in this webinar. A warm welcome to all. ISDSI as it suggests, it's an international forum. This time for a change, it is an international forum created by India, from India for the world. Perhaps the only international forum that will be headquartered and housed in India, promoting action research, academic excellence, internationalization, and perhaps is driven by the spirit of new education policy. ISDSI is created as a global body registered in India this year. The entire team has been working with another international association for almost 13 years. The same team is working in making ISDSI a global body. I'm happy to share that as I speak to you today, we have more than 22 countries who have pledged their support to be part of ISDSI Global. So we are going to have our maiden inaugural conference, a grand conference at IIM Nagpur. Again, I thank Professor Maitre for being generous and giving us this opportunity to host the first conference at IIM Nagpur. And it is very ambitious, where we are talking about participation from 30 countries and 1,000 participants, marking it as India's largest academic forum. And we all know that anything that Dr. Maitre puts up, his numbers are, in academic standards, they're all mind-boggling. And when he said 1,000 participants, we were all questioning, is it possible? But as the days are passing by, we are seeing the result, and we are seeing the support pouring in from all directions. So once again, with these words, I welcome all the participants this evening for another very exciting webinar on a very interesting topic on program and pedagogy of the future, which is high touch and high tech, or high tech and high touch for the new normal. So we will leave the audience with the experts to for their ideas. Let me also take this occasion to introduce our special guest for the day, Sri Gurnani ji, and request him for a special address to kickstart the session.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi Kumar. And again, it's an honor to be on the same stage as Professor Balachandran, Richard Rekhy, Dr. Ganesh Natarajan, and the other Dr. Natarajan. So clearly, I can only say is that IIM Nagpur is indeed lucky to have Professor Maitre at its helm. And clearly what we have seen, the way Dr. Maitre has been focused on students, focused on academia, focused on the next generation learning. I mean, I can only say that both Ganesh and I come from the industry, and we both strongly believe we can learn from some of you who probably do a much better job than what we do. I had the honor of meeting Professor Balachandran, and I requested him to come and visit me in Hyderabad, and he agreed to come to Hyderabad. What was supposed to be a 30-minute lecture, the number of questions and the enthusiasm and his energy level, I don't know, sir, if you remember, when you had visited us in at that time, Mahindra Satyam in Hyderabad, but the questions were
definitely,
went
yes.
on.
Thank you very much. Definitely. Fond memories.
So the session went on for approximately 2 hours. I mean, he tried to remind us of his age, and we thought that if we can have half his energy at his whatever age, I mean, we would be lucky. So, I mean, he can dance on the stage. That's all I can tell you. So now, what was the common thing between the lecture that he gave about 8 to 10 years ago and now? So let me relate back to that lecture And that lecture had three aspects: that there is no management without human experience management. There is no management if you're not learning from others. And number third is, if you are not adopting technology, there is no management. So what are those three key messages? And I think they are still relevant. Number one is human experience management. Number two, I mean, I know Dr. Ganesh Natarajan, when he goes to the Harvard Business School, he talks about the case study method. And I know, sir, all of you ultimately are essentially sharing that there are best practices and we can learn from each other. There is a similar situation that may have been handled by someone else. Now, so my only point is very, very clear, that I am proud of Professor Maitre and I am Nagpur. I am glad that all of us are together at this ISDSI Global Talk Series. And I know 2021 is re-emphasized what Professor Balachandran said a few years ago, and it has become even more about personalization and customization. Everybody is no longer addressing their customer. They're trying to address the customer's customer. The target audience and hyper-personalization have now become keywords. And many of us would also remember that during our college journeys, the best part was the journey. It was not always the classroom. The best part of any business is the high touch and high tech. Now, if we can blend high touch and high tech, I think we are creating new learning experiences. And that high touch, now whether we use an high tech or whether we use the old fashioned way of building relationship and trust, I think end of the day, it is all about, I mean, Mr. Richard Rekhy, he handled the largest, for want of better words, though he would always disagree with me and vehemently, he would fight. When I used to call him an accounting firm and he used to say, no, we are management consulting XYZ. Now, the point I'm trying to make is, even during those days, Richard Rekhy, who knew that there is a business which Kpmg will get on their own right also, but he would travel 200 nights a year meeting clients. I think that personalized attention that Richard brought to the business, I think we need to be aware of it. And COVID will soon be history, or at least we would have evolved to handle the post-COVID world. I continuously would like to learn. I would like to continuously believe that our students would adopt to the flexible learning, but more important is we will also adopt to a generation that is digitally savvy, but we will not forget that digital still belongs to the same pillar, the three pillars that Professor Balachandran had enhanced, and the fourth pillar, which is the post-COVID world, which is, the connectivity and the continuous learning through the technology and the hybrid learning. I, again, feel confident that that the new hybrid learning would take into account all the 3 or 4 factors, and we will continue to evolve better. I'm really honored that I have a chance to, participate with some of the luminaries. Some are friends like Richard and Dr. Ganesh Natarajan, and some I will become friends as we go along, and some who are gurus like Professor Balachandran. I mean, I hope I mean, some of you visit his campus in Chennai, because again, that campus again shows what I'm trying to demonstrate. There is connectivity of people at individual level, whichever way you look at it. You come out of the classrooms, you're talking to 10 people. You are always encouraged to interact. So again, thank you very much, Professor Maitri, for inviting me. I know you have a packed program, but 3 cheers to personalization, 3 cheers to customization, and 3 cheers to continuous education. Thank you.
Thank you so much, CPG. Thank you so much for sparing time for us from your busy schedule and sharing your thoughts. Over to you, Saloni.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jain. And once again, it was thrilling to hear Mr. Gurnani, and I've heard him just a while ago, in our commencement day program at BIMTech, and I took a lot of takeaways, and I'm always greedy for more, when I meet all of you. So today my takeaways are, like Sir has asserted, personalization and customization, hyper-personalization, and the 3 very, very important things like human experience management. I think as teachers, this is something our students really want, and also teaching where they are. So today I brought my students on Mensa app, and I launched part of my course up there. I'll be teaching them through all these platforms where they will be. That's getting inspired from the exposure we have using technology extensively, and also if you're not learning from others. So I think this is the reason why ISDI Global Talk Series has such a lot of importance in the lives of all of us. Those who are designing curriculum, those who are teaching subjects, those who are creating content for the classes, I hope all of you have noted down these takeaways. In education psychology, there are several models. All of them may have, addressed similar issues even way back, but there are fundamental questions like, how do students learn effectively? What is happening in this classroom that facilitates learning better than in another classroom? So let's get prepared to draw more from the panel session, which is going to begin shortly. And I take this opportunity to quickly introduce the speakers. And let me tell you, you cannot miss a single word they say. So keep your notebooks and pen or whatever way that you can make your notes right now. Don't wait for the recording or don't wait for later, but do write your takeaways to, in the chat and share with us. It's an honor to welcome the first speaker, Richard Rekhy, sir, and he's the former CEO of Kpmg in India. I've been following your reports, and the global skills report are very essential for all of us. Let me quickly tell this house that Mr. Rekhy has not only been the CEO of Kpmg, but he has been on National Council of CII. He also chairs the Northern Region Economic Affairs and Taxation Committee. He's the National Executive Committee of CII for Corporate Governance and on the board of the prestigious American Chambers of Commerce. He's been appointed chairman of Enactus India. And as you all know, it's a non-profit organization which makes social leaders out of our students, change makers out of our own students who will lead the world ahead. And we all are going to draw a lot from his experience in risk management, leadership, economy, and we have read him through various articles and heard him in interviews. I'm just waiting to know how I can take some vision from his speech in this session, this panel session, which is about, as you all know, the core team. It's just a request, please mute yourselves. You may have some background noise coming. High-tech, high-touch MBA program, pedagogy and delivery models, reflection and disruptions. So my next speaker is Mr. Bala V. Balachandran, and as you have all heard that he is from Great Lakes Institute of Management. He's been on the faculty of University of Dayton, Carnegie Mellon University, and Annamalai University, heading and boards and heading such futuristic schools I think we are set to draw a lot of learnings from him. He's from the field of finance and accounting, and he has received a coveted award of the J.L. Kellogg Distinguished Professor in Accounting, Information and Management in the year 1984. Dr. Ganesh Natarajan, our next speaker, he's executive chairman and founder 5F World. He's over 30 years of experience, and that includes his roles in as CEO of Aptech and Zensar Technologies. Many of you would have read case studies on, his initiatives. And he has been the distinguished alumna of IIT Mumbai and NITIE, and recognized by EY and Asia Pacific HR Forum for Excellence in Technology, Entrepreneurship, and People-Centric Leadership. So I'm really looking forward, and my diary is ready. I love making notes, and I'm so excited to hear you. Our next speaker is Mr. Ramachandran Natarajan, and he is a BTech from IIT Madras, a PGDM from IIM Kolkata, Masters in Management Economics and Decision Sciences from Kellogg Graduate School of Management and Northwestern University, with a PhD in Business from University of Kansas. He has been in the field of management of operations, technology and innovation, quality and performance management, supply chain, and global aspects of operations. As we all know that, he has been recognized as the top 100 researchers in operations management during a 5-year period. He's also received the College of Business Advisory Board Award for Outstanding Faculty Researchers several times. So, ladies and gentlemen, the session is going to be, we are ready to begin this session. And sorry, there was some distraction, some noise behind. Okay, so I just want to let everybody know that do not miss out on anything that they have to say with us. And let's hand over the session to the moderator, and let's begin.
Please unmute yourself, Professor Natarajan.
Okay. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hello. Yeah. Hello and good evening. Namaste. And first of all, I would like to wish all of you a very happy Independence Day, even though it is not exactly today, but it is, will be here in a few hours. For me, this is a really distinct pleasure and honor to be part of this esteemed panel of experts from academia and industry, especially with Professor Balachandran, who has been, my professor a long time ago. It's always good to see him. And so being part of this panel, being able to moderate is really being a moderator is really an honor for me. So I would say that in the last few years, management education, in fact, higher education in general, has been going through a transformative period. So this pace of transformation has been accelerated by COVID, and so we are really going through some very challenging times. So my task today, as I see it, is to lay out the agenda, to lay out the background, give the background context, and also have some framework in which the discussion can take place and our distinguished panelists can make their contributions and share their insights and thoughts from their perspectives, from their own respective vantage points. So to that effect, I'm going to be making some opening remarks, and after that, we will hear from the other panelists. So in my view, I think first we need to have some clarification of these terms, high tech and high touch, because if we don't have that, then these terms will remain as abstractions. We really cannot make any sense out of them in terms of decision making or being able to incorporate them into our strategies of the different MBA institutions. So first of all, I would say that I believe that, or I consider both high tech and high touch really to be technologies for delivering educational experience. One is highly human capital intensive, the other one is capital intensive. So the point is, how do we optimally blend these two technologies? So the idea is that if you look at the characteristics of the high tech and high touch, I would say that high tech can be associated with efficiency, the notion of efficiency, whereas high touch, it can be associated with the concept or notion of effectiveness. So the point is, when we're trying to combine a blend, high tech and high touch, we are really trying to combine high efficiency and effectiveness. So basically, try to get the best of both worlds. The other thing I would like to point out is high tech and high touch are, in terms of necessary or sufficiency, I would say that high tech is necessary sometimes, but certainly not sufficient. And this point was made earlier by our honored guest C.P. Gurnani. And whereas I would say that high touch is both necessary and sufficient. So without high touch, we simply cannot be able to provide a high quality educational experience. The other thing I would like to point out is MBA institutions have to understand the relationship between high tech and high touch. So to make my point, I'm going to be sharing a screen here of see if I can get it. So sometimes high tech and high touch are really to be viewed as substitutes. And here is a very simple diagram to illustrate that point. So if you think in terms of what happened during the pandemic, basically a lot of institutions and very quickly and very rapidly had to make the transition from point B, where they were operating before in terms of high touch, full-time MBA programs, in-person classes, so on and so forth. They had to transition very quickly to point A, which is is almost 100% high tech. So, but the transition was not smooth. The transition was more like a roller coaster, and different institutions responded to this challenge of COVID in different ways. Once Napoleon was asked what is going to be the battle strategy by his commanders, so as you go into the battle tomorrow. So Napoleon's answer was, why don't you show up in the battle and then see what happens? So that may be an appropriate response when you have a lot of uncertainty. And that's exactly what happened. So institutions experimented, and COVID actually sparked a lot of innovations, both in terms of tools and also processes for delivering the educational experience. But the point is, we are not going to go back to B. It's not straight, retracing the path, and it's going to be, business as usual. It's not going to happen. So it's going to take a different path. We really don't know what the evolution is still taking place. But certainly, we have learned a lot about the efficiencies to be gained by high tech. And we have learned a lot how to take advantage of it. For example, virtual teams, having guest speakers speak to class virtually, and then having virtual office hours, so on and so forth. So both faculty and institutions have gone down a very, very steep learning curve in a very short amount of time. And I will also share a slide with you later in just a moment, where the institutions that have been resilient, the institutions that had the strength to make the adjustments, actually have been rewarded in terms of increased demand for their programs. Now, if you focus on the slide, you see that basically we have to think in terms of a combination, some kind of an optimal combination, how to get the best blend of both high tech and high touch. And here, Professor Balachandran would probably immediately see this as more like a constraint optimization, the concept that he taught us many years ago. But this choice between high tech and high touch cannot be made only by the MBA institutions or by the business schools. It has to take into account the value proposition they're offering to their student segments. For example, if you're your executive MBA, the students are not going to be happy by switching to point A, because they want that human experience. They want, for them, the value comes from interacting with their peers, okay, from other industries. So they would like to have more human element, the more elements of high touch. And the same would be true, for example, even for international students. International students are a big segment of a big student segment, as it is the case in many MBA programs in the US. Then again, students go overseas not to just listen to or view some video lectures through Zoom. They are going there to interact with faculty, have face-to-face interactions, and also look for networking opportunities with their peers. So there has to be an understanding of where we stand. So what is the market telling us? What is the value proposition? And accordingly, for different institutions, based on how they want to competitively position themselves, they have to come up with something in that region, okay, that is that I've indicated in this slide. The other issue is that sometimes high tech and high touch are not substitutes, but they're actually complements. What I mean by that is, if you have a lot of high technology in your delivery process, instruction delivery process, then it can also induce or create a demand for high touch. So let me give you an example in terms of say using virtual reality or augmented reality, creating immersive simulations and such. But those kind of situations, the students cannot rely only on high technology. So those kind of experiential learning has to be guided. So there has to be a guide, there has to be a coach and or a mentor to kind of interpret the results and then also share the mentors or the guide's experience in what is the relevance of all that. So understanding those two, the relationship, when they are complements and when they are substitutes is very important if you're really going to start making some hard decisions about combining high tech and high touch. I mentioned earlier that the institutions that have been resilient, the institutions that have been able to adapt and change very quickly have been rewarded. Okay? So here is some data to validate that. So if you look at the number of MBA applications during the pandemic, okay, compare that in 2020 with 2019, what you find is basically the number of applications have either remained the same, stable, or it has increased. And that has been the case in different parts of the world, Canada, Europe, US, and Asia Pacific. But the extent to which that increase in applications is there is obviously there is some variation. But so in other words, so there is still a strong demand for MBA programs. Of course, one may say that this increase in application is because many institutions are waiving their requirements. For example, GRE and GMAT were waived by many programs, and for example, even Kellogg, they were allowing students who were actually rejected, okay, in the past in their admission process to actually apply again, consider applying again. So all that has really increased the MBA application. So there is still a strong demand. So though one may not know whether this is like a cyclical phenomenon, because usually when there is a recession, and we did have a COVID recession, whether that was the thing that was driving this increase in application. Now, whether this increase in application has resulted in increased enrollment, that's a different story, because many MBA institutions have tried to be flexible, probably more so in US than maybe in Asia. For instance, they have given student scholarships, they have given, they have deferred their admission, so on and so forth, and try to be flexible. But the point I'm trying to make is there is still a strong demand for MBA, and hopefully it'll continue to be there. The other thing I would like to mention in terms of competitive landscape for MBA programs is in terms of product offerings. In the last few years, even before COVID, there has been a trend towards offering more specialist programs, masters in analytics, masters in finance, masters in human resources and such. Whether that trend will pick up again post-COVID? Okay, that remains to be seen. The other thing I would like to point out about the competitive product offerings is that because of lifelong learning, okay, that Mr. Gurnani mentioned about being a lifelong learning and upskilling needs of students, throughout their life. So there is distributed learning, and many institutions are offering MicroMasters, they're offering modules, they're offering certificates, or what we call stackable credentials. So many students are going in for that, more like non-traditional students who don't want to be part of the full-time MBA, or they don't have the time. So they are opting for these other options. But the point is, will they combine all this, and will they create the so-called stackable credential and really turn all that into a full-time MBA type of degree? There is a risk that they may not do that. They may be interested in very specific topics, maybe finance, maybe human resources, and stop right there. So I'll just try to give you a picture of the lay of the land, or how the competitive situation is changing with regard to MBA program. So when we talk about high touch and high tech, we have to take into account these demand related or market related factors. The other thing I would like to say, make some few remarks about artificial intelligence. So I'm going to stop sharing now. So with regard to artificial intelligence, there are 4 discussion points. In fact, 2 of them refer to artificial intelligence, but I'm going to anchor all that in the context of high tech and high touch. So artificial intelligence emerged as a field maybe in the 1960s and 70s, there was a lot of promise, okay? And most of that promise was not fulfilled, at least in the 80s and 90s. Okay, there were a lot of hype, but the reality fell short. But in the last 30 years, there has been a lot of evolution in artificial intelligence, basically because of 3 things, okay, at least in my view. One is more powerful algorithms have being developed. Second is higher computing power. Computing power has really gone up exponentially. The third is availability of data. Society, digitization, everybody has a digital footprint, so it is easier to collect data and share data and process data. So these 3 forces, these 3 factors are driving the evolution or the development of artificial intelligence. In fact, artificial intelligence is a very different type of phenomenon. Sundar Pichai, a boss of Google, has described developments in AI as more profound than the development, more profound than fire or electricity. So artificial intelligence is a general purpose technology. It is going to be ubiquitous. It already is ubiquitous. Whenever you're charging your credit card or going through any kind of transaction, there is some artificial intelligence, decision making or a process behind that. So whether it is personalized learning, or whether it is personalized medicine or precision agriculture, artificial intelligence is going to be there. And there is always some scope or opportunity for application. But I still think that there are some issues to be resolved, and I will take up those issues and I will address them, when we get into some question and answers after our panelists have shared their thoughts. So that is pretty much my setting the stage for the discussion. And so now I would like to call upon our distinguished panelists, and I would like to start with Richard Rekhy. So over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Natarajan. And, good evening, everybody. And thank you, Dr. Maitri, for inviting me for this. I'm feeling very humbled, actually. I'm the least qualified of the lot to speak on this subject. And, now I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed after listening to your comments on high tech, high touch. It was really, you brought some very new, at least from my point of view, a lot of new ideas onto it. The point which, I just thought, and I'm going to give you my point of view as somebody who's been recruiting, somebody who's been working with MBAs, and what my experience has been. And Dr. Maitri may recall that some time back before COVID hit, I was a proponent of we must move online because of Industry 4.0, and we did one meet with various vice chancellors, etc. So I'm happy that COVID has actually fast-tracked everything. We were not going to move there. I'm sure we wouldn't have moved, but actually COVID took us. And I've always noticed that a crisis makes adoption much faster. And people somehow get used to it. I mean, Zoom existed even before this, but where were Zoom calls ever in this way, or the various other platforms that are there? So at least I'm happy that we have moved there. But the challenge which we have with the way technology has invaded our lives, pervasive, it's gone very deep. I would say deep tech, and COVID come on top of it has been a double whammy. So basically, we are living in very, very uncertain times and irrational. I mean, some of the things that are coming up are irrational, and disruptions have become accelerated. So disruptions are always there. As leaders, I've been leading a firm. I know the disruptions that kept taking place, but I've never seen disruption of this nature. And I'm so happy that I'm not in a CEO now, because it's very, very difficult time to actually lead an organization. And I pity all the people who are there, because they really have to take with so many uncertainties. I mean, at least we had few uncertainties and few knowns. We could still go ahead. Now everything is uncertain. So new business models are emerging. We have got to be fast. We have got to be agile. I learned about agility long back, let me tell you, but the way agility has to be practiced today is completely different. It's taken a completely new turn. So agility, and the reason why I'm using all these words, because this is what the MBA courses should be actually talking about and should move there into that direction. Leadership styles have changed. You know, the earlier leader was very different to what today is. Today, you've got to be much more collaborative. You've got to, I'm sure a lot of y'all are much more bigger gurus on this, but I can just give you my practical way of learning that how do you actually work in a more collaborative, inspiring way, where you inspire people to actually follow you. Innovation has no more. Earlier, I remember when people want innovation, there would be innovation room, there would be innovation this and innovation team. Today, innovation is part of your survival. It's no more going to be there. And new age companies have to value this entire technology disruption that is taking place. And what I like, which we are not doing in India, but when I went to China, I saw, so whoever disrupted you, now they are finding their disruptor. So they are not waiting to get disrupted, but they are funding their disruptor so that they can survive, through their own valuations, etc. So I think these are, climate change is no more a hype. It is now there. I don't think anybody ever concentrated on wellness and mental health as much we did post-COVID. I mean, this has become a top topic of boardroom discussions at any management meeting. Mental health, wellness is very important. Crisis management, I knew crisis management, but I never knew it to this extent. It's now a strategy. And you can't say that crisis management, I'll do this, I'll do that, but crisis management is very important. And of course, ESG has become, today, there are a lot of investors will not invest unless companies have ESG, they are compliant on ESG. And so that has now become the order of the day. So my question is, how many of our courses actually take into account all these topics? So maybe they do, but do they do it in sufficient detail? And that is something that maybe we need to look at. And even now work, you spoke about high tech, high touch. Now it's no more going to be that you're going to work from home or you're going to work from office or you're going to work. I don't know what the new work is going to be, honestly. I don't know where it is going to land up. So I say work from anywhere is going to be a model. I tried it, let me tell you, when I was a CEO, I just failed at that time because people were not willing to move and do what we were trying to do because it was all about the trust factor, etc. But I think now this new work ethics is going to take place. We become boundaryless. Today we are doing a meeting, you're sitting in the US, Professor Bala is, I think, sitting in the US, and we are sitting here in India, we're still doing this meeting. I mean, and technology has become more pervasive than even before with post-COVID, and I think the world is going to be restructured. The world is going to go through completely restructuring, and a new world is going to emerge. In my own personal opinion, this is my personal opinion, we're going to have a much more prosperous world than we had pre-COVID. So because a lot of the fat has been cut, a lot of the inefficiencies have been cut, and we have created a very, very fit for purpose companies where we have come with absolutely new business models, which people have been doing out there. So when I look at the MBA course and all the students who go through it, I'm not sure how much of it is experiential learning. It's very important. I would say case studies are good, but they are static. And how do we actually bring experiential learning into it? And in my view, experiential learning will be primarily shaped by three factors: quality of the faculty, the peer group that is there, I mean the student group, and the pedagogy that we are trying to put together will. So I've always been a proponent that we need to have much more practical. Yes, you need to teach the academic part, but you have to be much more practical and let the students be exposed to real life problems in industry. So can we not have a model of just, people going for 1 month, 2 months, for some internship? And let me tell you, most of the internships don't really work because companies are so busy in their work, they just give them some project. There has to be a purpose why we're doing something, and it needs to enhance the students' learning abilities. So I would suggest maybe real life case studies in the class. You get these small sector industries to come with their problems, let the class solve it. I mean, I'm just giving some thoughts out here, where may or may not. I heard, earlier we used to talk of mass production. Today we have got mass customization because the way, manufacturing has moved, it's moved to mass. So today, if I want to buy a car, I can, and I remember Professor Bala was giving one example of a car. He was a Tesla car and how it was getting repaired from somebody called up and, and you got your car repaired in 10 minutes or whatever. So that's the new technology that has come and overtaken the cars. But I'm talking of mass. I want a car with X seating, X whatever, all that can actually be mass customized. So I think we should move away from this batch and customized, and learning, which is general, to very customized teaching. And for here, we need to use technology. Because how do you actually develop an individual for his or her issues will have to be done through only technology. And then, like I said, we must bring in this experiential and immersive technologies. I think you spoke about it, Dr. Natarajan, about immersive technologies. And I think we need to let the students actually feel that they are in a real life problem. The heat of the problem, when actual executives go through it, can they feel that heat while doing their case studies? And would they be able to, how do they react to it? Because stress is also very important. How do they deal with stress at that time? Just give one simple example. We don't teach an MBA student, how do you run a hotel during a lockdown? I mean, these are new realities of life. I mean, the lockdown has happened. How do you run the business in which you are? I'm just giving a hotel as an example. We could take any example we want. So we need to have the delivery of the cases or what we teach. We have to use multimedia, augmented reality. I heard you talk about virtual reality and other technologies that may be there to make the program more interesting. And I heard some of these now, they make films, etc. of cases, and it makes it much more, the stickiness factor comes in. So problem solving, critical thinking, digital skills, collaboration, these are going to be very, and what do we actually, when schools teach digital skills, when we talk of these schools teaching, we focus on how to use technology, but we should concentrate on how to create technology, not how to just use technology, but how do we create technology. And I think that's where as a country, India is also lacking. I think we have been followers. We have not led the game where we want to create. I mean, we created this entire industry, IT industry with billions of dollars of turnover, but we have not been able to take it to the next level. Maybe Ganesh will disagree with me out here, but I think we could have done much more than what we have done out there. So some of the topics we teach today will no longer be valid in the next few years. So we have to see how this lifelong learning thing, which you have been talking about, where you should be ready. The B school should be ready to accept students at 40 years, or when they are 50 years, boards will have to be re-educated. Senior mid-level executives will have to be retrained and on their job, because the people who are losing their jobs are the people who are in their 40s. 45 to 50 is where most people are losing their job because they become redundant. they are not at all valid. They're not at all relevant for the company now because companies moved on. So how do we keep these people reskilled and there? So I would say the new technology, the personalized approach I've already spoken about. So the other one which I'm saying is, are these MBA students job ready? Today, companies don't have patience to wait to train the students when they come on board to hit the ground running. So the question that we need to ask here, I'm just asking, I'm not saying it's there. So one is, are they job ready to take on and hit the job running? The second one, once they get in the job, how are they reskilling? And that is the company's job to keep pace with the changing world in which we live. I think that is going to be very, very important. So the way I look at it, we need to bring continuous learning in, because all that I learned when I became a chartered accountant was no more relevant even 10 years later into my job. I had to completely learn. So continuous learning has to be very much there. We live in an infinite world, so infinite opportunities. So how are we training the students to think of that infinite opportunities that are there, the systems that may be there? And in my view, definition of skill has changed. Earlier, it was marketing, finance, accounting, etc. But now I think it has changed to sectors, subsectors, understanding the new domains that are there. Those are the skills that people are looking for, and just not are you a marketing professional or your accounting professional. So new industries, we spoke about e-commerce, artificial intelligence. I think, Doctor, you spoke about it. Continuous learning will be a part of the job. Now the students need to, earlier somebody would say, oh, I'm part of entrepreneur club, I'm part of this club. When you write your resume, today people are going to ask you, what is your experience with e-commerce? What's your experience with digital payments, data science, etc. So I think those are going to be very, very important. And so I would say things like ethics and integrity, very important. Complex problem solving ability. Today, the whole issue is, how are we, thinking to solve complex problems that are facing? Critical thinking will be very important. Empathy is going to be very important. We are living in a world which is there. Innovative out-of-box thinking, negotiation skills, and infinite thinking, which I spoke about. So I think the important point that we all need to say is, and then I want to talk a little bit on the faculty. So teaching and learning mirror each other. In my view, teaching and learning mirror each other. Hence, we need to imagine the role and skills of the faculty. How do we upgrade the faculty as much as we're talking of the students? So there should be lifelong learning for the faculty also. How are they upgrading their skills, and how are they getting real world experience of going and doing some assignments or research on that. The other one big thing that we discussed, I think we were talking about it earlier, was the rise of the startup community. So how are we preparing our students for the startup community? And here I would just like to point one thing. Every time we talk of a case study, we talk of a successful startup. Anytime we talk of startup, the 20 names will come, all the unicorns will come, or the 60 unicorns that are in India, their names will pop up. But what about the failures? The bigger learnings can come from failures. So do we teach failed cases to students so that they can actually learn? And how do we take it? So I would say the business school should look at future trends, emerging trends, and say, are we actually preparing our students for the future? And how are we keeping them ready? So new case studies could include things, startup, crisis management, innovation, climate change, new business models, leadership styles, which are very different from what they were earlier. And I would also give one more. There are these, at least in India, worldwide also, there would be these large government projects which have been very successful. So how do we actually teach students about these success of these big projects? And how do we actually take it back to industry and say, because these are impacting various lives. Secondly, a lot of our studies are for the affluent. We are not looking, because you see the economy, when it grew, just one section of the economy grew. We need an inclusive growth. So we have to see how are we going to teach people that we have to get into. And I would once again talk of ethics and values. For me, it is the most important thing, because today a large number of corporate failures have happened because senior executives in companies have displayed inappropriate behavior. And this has to be the hallmark, especially in a tech-driven world. I mean, you can just go berserk because tech will drive you, you'll hide some of your things. And I think the basic teaching of business ethics, values has to be paramount. And I would go to the extent of saying it should be very, very mandatory that everybody is there. And I would conclude by saying the future of learning should be about becoming more human rather than becoming more smart, more human. It's important because I'll tell you, artificial intelligence will beat us when it comes to smartness. So if we have got human managers, need to increase our EQ and learn thinking in a non-linear way. Thank you. That's my minutes here. Thank you.
Yeah, Richard, you have made some excellent points. And also, you have made my job easier because you also summed them up so well in terms of what the challenges are and what are the kind of things that MBA programs and these schools in general have to be doing. They have to face the challenges of the future. And you have made some, some of the issues that you have brought up, for example, like wellness, and there are opportunities for MBA programs to start offering courses. So use this crisis as an opportunity to address some real needs and immediate needs of the business community and business professionals. So I think those points are very well made, and I think all the attendees and also the leaders of the management schools should be paying particular attention to those. I have a question relating to your experience, with Kpmg, management consulting. You've had clients, you've seen clients and what they do. So even though this high tech and high touch may be relatively new for management institutions, because suddenly they wake up, due to the crisis, and then they say, okay, how do I transition? How do I try to combine? How do I try to blend? But many service industries have already addressed this problem. In many service processes, when they start automating services, many services, they identify the customer touch points, what are the interfaces, and then accordingly, they have designed service processes, not always to the satisfaction of the customer, I must say. Okay, quite often those automated services, lead to a lot of frustrations and dissatisfaction. So from that point of view, and also, if you think about Kpmg, it is also in the education business because you've got a learning academy. Okay? So maybe the business schools should learn from Kpmg Learning Academy and what they are trying to do. So you have been at it for a while in terms of combining high tech and high touch. So are there any best practices? Are there any lessons that we can learn in the MBA institutions, which going forward will help us?
Yeah, Dr. Natarajan, I think the one big learning that came out of COVID, we all actually, if you ask me, for 1 month, everybody was frozen. Month of April, nothing happened because suddenly this whole thing hit us. But from May, everybody got their act together. And in fact, I'm more involved now in the Middle East. I'm not involved with India now, I'm involved in the Middle East. Just to give you a small glimpse, our practice has been growing at 30%. Our consulting practice has been growing at 30% for the last 2 years. And it is coming from exactly this, using technology to service our clients, because you physically can't go and meet. There are very few meetings you can do because of COVID, but using technology and be able to give that kind of solution to clients. I think there's going to be a downside to it. My personal view, there's going to be a downside. Our audit colleagues, they have been doing audit without visiting the clients, and the client will say, no, don't ever come to our site. You sit and do the audit from wherever you are. But I think, it has to be, both sides need to be technology enabled, the consultant as well as the client. So wherever clients are not technologically enabled, it's very difficult to download the system and, actually do everything else. But the amount of efficiency that has come in because of this, and the amount of rigor that we've been able to put clients, some of the clients have been very happy. Okay, there have been mixed results, to be honest with you. There have been cases where clients have not been happy also with this thing. But there have been cases where clients have been more, and a lot of efficiencies come into our process. In fact, we have been able to cut down our costs, our delivery costs to a great extent using this. And also, you may be aware that all of us have a lot of back-end offices sitting in India and other parts of the world. So we've been able to use them much more effectively than what we were using them before COVID. So that was another big advantage. On the learning and development, let me tell you, KPMG is not doing a great job. It is, we've got pockets of good work, but pockets which are completely floundering. But now they are taking it in their hand and using online as a big way of reaching out to our clients. So maybe we'll see some success out there.
I think you made a very important point here about the technology capabilities of the client.
Yeah.
I think that is very relevant for
Yes.
MBA institutions, because we also have to take into account what is the technology infrastructure, what is the access to technology that students have.
Yeah.
So if students are going to be learning from home, do they have access? Do they have broadband? Okay, in wherever they are. So those issues have to be sorted out before. Otherwise, high technology is not going to really help and may actually lead to frustrations on the part of students. I think that's an important takeaway from your experience.
And the other issue, Dr. Natarajan, just before is also cybersecurity, how secure you are. Because, earlier you didn't have all this access. Now with this, because now you're working from home, are you as secure as you were in an office environment? So that's another big layer which one has to look at. So I just thought, I just wanted to put that point across.
Yeah, excellent takeaways. So, in the interest of time, I'm going to move on to the our next distinguished panelist, but I will come back and pose some questions for the entire panel later on. So, I would like to now have invite Professor Balachandran to share his thoughts.
Thank you very much, Ramachandran Natarajan. I'm so glad to see Kellogg a student doing so well. That is one. And one thing is very important, and such meetings. And Dr. Bhimaraya Maitri is a master of it. And it is very difficult to say no to him. That is the most important thing. I still remember 1 year back how the Minister of Human Resources, who was supposed to be a keynote speaker, in the last minute ditched him. And at the same time, I am so glad Maitri, appealed to me as a friend. Look, you do that. And guess what? It was more productive. Similarly, all the time, this is his note, and I am so glad. Similarly, I am also very much happy to see both Ganesh Natarajan and Ramachandran Natarajan. And Ganesh has done a lot of work more focused toward Indian needs and Indian thing. And nobody can have an all-round effect of consulting. See, like me, here is a guy who was a engineering master's and then moved into statistics, from statistics to operation research to accounting to strategy. I don't know what the heck I am doing, but I'm 85. I'm still active. Who cares? It's a number. Now, the same thing is Rekhy. He is just a versatile person who can, this is what is going to happen. Since Natarajan gave a fantastic overview and Rekhy came with a application and whatnot, I wanted to combine the best practices to the next practices. The next practices, I'm please note that I'm an 85-year-old talking about next practices. From mentoring to a reverse mentoring. Yes, we are senior people, older people, experienced people, but sometimes we do not know what the heck is happening in the technology. My grandson is giving some technology lecture, only 12 years old. I couldn't mind boggling. Actually, I talked about AIM Lab. AIM Lab is one thing which we are doing in Great Lakes. Started with business analytics, and based on that change, business analytics became baby, business analytics and business intelligence. Then baby became AIMLA, augmented intelligence. I don't like the word artificial intelligence. Augmented intelligence, I for Internet of Things, M for ML for machine learning, and the next A for algorithmic analytics. That's what we did. I thought it is revolutionary. Guess what? In the digital world and data world, if you don't have blockchain, nothing is working. That is a master ledger. And I do not know anything about blockchain 3 years back. Then I gave them best talk according to Accenture partners, a full of partners doing only these things. And then I said, all right, I'll do it. And so the question is, as Rekhy or Ramachandran said, it is continuous learning. All the time you learn, learning cannot stop, even at your deathbed. And learning not necessarily from your mentor, learning from a 14-year-old guy, 12-year-old guy, because they don't care. We worry about constraint optimists, because I view constraints are given, and so you work within the system. These guys don't think about constraint. Throw the damn constraint. Eliminate the constraint. Go for it. So the kind of questions they ask make you so innovative. So I have a feeling the whole world, yes, Industrial Revolution 4.0 made us to change the VUCA world to the PUCA world. You might not have heard the word PUCA. PUCA is platform for unmanned cargo aircraft. Can the air carrier be cheaper than trucks and goods train? The answer is yes. You get what you are taking your 25 days from New York to Beijing to ship or do something like that. In the plane, you can do it. And guess what? Nobody is in the plane, no human being. The whole plane is like a big drone, completely controlled by forces in the ground, and no oxygen needed, no pressurizing the compartment, and you can load it up like anything, and that it goes in. And now the world's biggest airport in the world is going to be somewhere between Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and Qatar. For what? Exclusively cargo. The world's airport biggest. That means that is going to be business. So it is going to make all the ground transportation, sea transportation in terms of cost better. So I'm also a cost manager. This is possible. So the continuous learning. Now take COVID. Is it a challenge or an opportunity? Is it a stumbling block or a stepping stone? Is it something crisis or creativity? I now find many faculty want to do only online. Why? They can be in the home. Don't come to the class. The only problem is some companies give, if you do anything in online, 50% price, salary. You give the same salary and allow them to work indoors. You don't need to work for 7 hours, 6 hours. By the time you reach from your home to the office in a major city, 3 hours are wasted in the bloody car, in the road, cursing the others. the whole, we start cursing, accidents, people die. From home, whether it is Chicago or Chennai, I don't give a damn. Same thing. So imagine the efficiency and the efficacy and the kind of thing. Everything you are teaching from a Zoom is recorded. So if a student wants to read 3 times, 4 times my lecture, no problem. If he is too smart to learn right at the first time, fine. Everybody is not smart. I can do that. And not only that, I don't believe in this or and. It is going to be an and. There will be a blended program. Every program in whether it is MBA school or any higher education school will have an online component and an offline component also. There are certain things you have to touch and feel. You cannot replace it by any technology. Or those who can afford come for the online and create this as a master rehearsal and make that listening to millions of people. I don't care whether you are in Chennai or Chicago. You know, for example, how many people can bring to a program like this in the last year? The Dean of Harvard, Srikant Datta, the Dean of Chicago Booth, Madhav Rajan, the Dean of Kellogg, not only Jain and also Kotler and also Sunil Chopra, Ramachandran, Natarajan will know definitely about it. And then all kinds of faculty, Ashwath Damodar, Indra Noy, these people need not come anywhere. Just stay in your home. I brought all of them in less than 10 days. Every day, the students were mesmerized. So is COVID a pain or a pleasure? If that COVID was not there, none of them will come. For a half an hour lecture, you waste 3 days traveling from Chicago, traveling from US to India. No need. So now what is the best thing that is going to happen? Everybody talked about continuous learning, but learning from 2 parts. It is not the question. Let us eliminate the tyranny of or and enjoy the power of and. Certain things will be, yes, touch and feel. You cannot replace a case study or experiential learning. So we are doing experiential learning. Why do you have to go to the stock market? Why do you talk about risk from there? In my trading forum in the campus, students with real money forming a team, put the money in a stock market, and whoever makes the highest return on that money in 3 months, I give the A grade. Not I give it, they give the A grade. Why? The output is known. No exam. Since no exam, no cheating. Guess what? Due to technology, students cheat so well. Nobody can stop cheating anywhere in the world. And we are now promoting cheating. Now that is not needed in an experience learning. Similarly, thank God to the government of India, I got something called AGBI. AGBI is Atal Innovation Mission, Great Lakes, Balachandran Innovation Incubation Center. What I teach, they have to do it in the same time. Nobody can learn risk, return, rewards, and stock market unless you put your own money, not simulated, and enjoy that. And create unicorns. 3 of our students made ton of money. Guess what? My partner, Mohan Raju, we started, Great Lakes started just 6 years back when the business baby program was created, something called great learning, thinking that technology is needed. Baiju gave $600 million. All right? in the newspaper. I'm not saying everybody is going to be a Lakam Raju, but opportunity is there. So folks, it is very important to us go out of the box thinking, problem solving, skill building, multidisciplinary. So unless we are agile, we cannot afford education. Agility, affordability, availability or accessibility, and adaptability. Do you think that the old things are gone? Yes, I had a fantastic ordinary microscope to see microorganisms. I can replace with a electron microscope. Million times better, faster. I can take advantage of time because of Industrial 4.0. I can take advantage of technology enhancement. As somebody said, it is no more marketing, etc., etc. That doesn't mean marketing, finance, operations is going to go away, but augmented with experiential learning, augmented with AIM Lab, or something like that. Let us call it as a technology with an infrastructure, with a software. But definitely understand, no day, no way a human being can be replaced by any one of them. Ultimately, the human resources and their brain. But the brain is now working better. The brain is more learning, adaptable. So out of the box thinking. Now, if India needs more faculty, and there are too many Indians in US or any other place, why not we tap them? They love to teach here. Take for example Ramachandran, Natarajan, or myself. And very soon we are going to regain the paradise we lost in India. And India is the most adaptable country. All right. Affluence sometimes lead to arrogance, but humility leads to creativity. I don't have resources, but I can tap into the resources free. I don't have time, no problem. Technology gives you time now. I can teach. As a matter of fact, most of I think Ramachandran Natarajan may note this. We take 4 years in US to do the undergraduate program. It can be done in 3 years. All the programs, anything. And guess what? How much that power? It is money value of time, not time value of money. Me and Rekhy talks about money value of time. If I don't do this now, what do I lose? Why not I take the same pedagogy, same material, same curriculum, teach it in half, and be creative. And everybody should do not only learning, but also applying that learning while they are learning in practical experience. If the two together are combined, experience automatically comes. Expertise can be learned quickly, but experience cannot be learned quickly. But this technology will allow. So you have now 2 booster rockets. When somebody can go to Mars, and a human being also going to space now. Why not an Indian go anywhere without getting out of the home? Globality. Can I compete with anybody in the world or any resource in the world? And at any time in the world. Why should Harvard and Kellogg and these to be? Why not the IIMs and IITs? For example, it is very difficult to get an IIT admission, whereas it is easy to get an MIT or a Caltech admission. And these are all possible. And now COVID has
Bala,
created the opportunity.
yeah, Professor Bala, sorry to interrupt, but
Yes.
Ganesh Natarajan has to leave shortly, so I
Okay,
would
I
like
already,
him
I
to,
am,
and then
I
we
am
will come
leaving
back.
right away.
Come back to you, and then I have some questions for you, so we'll pick up the discussion.
Absolutely. I have
I
a
think
few points to go. We'll take it
before
up. Thanks a
before he
lot.
leaves, can have
That
his
is why
remarks.
Ramachandran is Ramachandran. I am only a Balachandran,
All right, okay,
a
good.
little guy. Lord Ram. Thank you very much, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And I will come back to our discussion, okay? But I would like to give a chance now to my namesake,
No problem.
Dr. Ganesh. You're muted, sir.
Yes, thank you very much, sir. And always a pleasure to listen to you, Professor Bala, because I still remember coming
Thank you, Ganesh.
and speaking at the Great Lakes on my way from Chennai to Pondicherry. It was an amazing experience. And I think you are truly a pioneer, not only in the US, but I think in what you have shown in terms of quality pathways to the private sector in India. So it's amazing. Thank you. And Richard, of course, my friend, I think you made some amazing points. And in this forum, I will not dispute your point on the underachievement of the Indian software industry, but we can argue it separately over a drink. I'll just make a few points. I think it's important, and I totally agree with. I think you mentioned the tyranny of the or, and that's one thing I completely agree with you, because I myself am guilty of organizing many webinars over the last 18 months since COVID first hit. And you're absolutely right, Professor Bala. I think our ability to ensure that there is somebody and literally everybody we want to participate, given enough notice and given enough reason to come, has been absolutely outstanding. So I think that is one big benefit we've all seen of having people not having to travel, not having to kind of cope with crowds, etc. And even in the social sector, we've seen amazing participation. Just a couple of points I wanted to make, and I don't want to take too much time, is this whole point. I think Professor Natarajan, you mentioned very, very correctly about the almost like the convergence of high touch and high tech. And I think that is extremely critical. I mean, I still remember it was a few years ago, and I was on one of my annual visits to Harvard Business School, because there we teach a case on my company, Zensar Technologies, on mission communities. And at that time, I had a chat with my good friend, Professor Bharat. And Bharat was giving me we had a long session on HBX. Many of you might have heard of HBX, which was the whole model of high touch, high tech that HBX really made happen. And I was fortunate enough to then get involved in a few ideas. And then Bharat came to Mumbai and we discussed that also. So I think it's been an interesting one. But I mean, let me just take the key elements of what makes it successful. I remember in the early days of e-learning, we used to talk about what would make e-learning truly successful. And we said, if let's say, I mean, pick your favorite professor. If you said Tom Peters, for instance, who's obviously an amazing teacher. If you said Tom Peters has to be as effective on e-learning as he is in a 1 hour face-to-face conference, how do you then design technology? And the fact of the matter is we have not been successful. Because with all those lovely e-learnings that we talk about, and I will not mention the brand names, we all know it. Don't forget that course completion rates even today are as low as 12 to 15%. Our experiments with pure e-learning have not worked at all. And this was our basic premise when we started looking at HBX in Harvard Business School. And if you now look at HBX, the way it works, even a Michael Porter loves to teach in the studio. We actually took a studio near Boston and converted that into the classroom. But it's completely AI and virtual reality enabled. The reason being that, I mean, if a typical Harvard classroom, and I'm sure it's true for IIM, Nagpur, everywhere else, typically you'll have 80 students in a semicircular format in the classroom. When you walk into that studio, you have a console in front of you, and the 80 people are there in front of you, obviously not in a classroom, but in a semicircular screen in front of you. So you could pretty much say that you can replicate everything you do because you're seeing the same faces, except you're seeing them online. But the beauty of this model, because I think all technology must augment the real experience. So what are the problems of the real experience? The first problem of the real experience is when you have 80 faces in front of you, even the best member of the faculty, and in Harvard Business School, there's still a lot of chalk writing, etc., because it's the engagement model. But you're not going to make out that one guy is quietly looking down, not watching the class, doing his WhatsApp. And the more important is at the end of every class, we have to grade or literally fill up a parameter on how each student performed in the class. So, I mean, even if you meet a Harvard professor, he will not meet you till half an hour after his class is over, because while the memory of the class is current in his mind, he still wants to go away and do all the scoring. Now, look at the beauty of this model. Okay, so what we designed was that we put in artificial intelligence. So as the professor is speaking, he gets a prompt on the screen saying that, look, student on screen number 43 is not paying attention. So please ask him that question. Okay, so it's amazing because you can actually engage with students much better because you're getting prompts augmenting your capability to ask questions to the right people, etc. And of course, at the end of the class, the AI is automatically prompting based on student responses. I mean, literally, I connect saying that, look, this is for attention, you give this one for the quality of questions, etc. You don't need to. I mean, nobody's saying that you have to incorporate, but I'm saying it's a huge augmentative aid to the classroom. So to my mind, the integration of high tech and high touch really comes to life when you can use the best of commonly available technology and use it uncommonly well. Because just using technology for what it's supposed to is really not the benefit. And I am a great believer. I mean, even today in many, many Indian universities, and I will not name them because one of our companies does huge amounts of work with the education system, including the formal government universities as well as private sector. And we're finding the students are greatly missing the classroom, not because the quality of teaching is any less, as Professor Balachandran rightly said. Of course, it's there. You can get better faculty as well. But they're missing the peer group interaction. Because at the end of the day, I remember when my daughter first went to Cambridge in the UK, I used to ask her that, look, I mean, you've got these fantastic professors who are doing these 300 people lectures. Do you really love them? She said, no. I mean, after the first two classes, nobody even goes for those lectures. I said, what do you mean? We're talking about Cambridge University. She said, yes, but where we really learn is the 8-person tutorials, okay, where somebody will sit and have a discussion and we'll engage, etc. And that's a learning opportunity. Because what is today taught in a 300-person, the most brilliant lecture, including Tom Peters, you can get it on the internet. You can get it on YouTube. You have to attend a physical lesson and sit maybe 100 meters away in a classroom. So, I mean, young people are changing the way they learn. And my own experience, even in Pune University, where I live, is that when you went in there and you can actually get people to interact, and especially in where people are good facilitators, the learning process is so much better, which is the reason, obviously, that we all know that e-learning doesn't work. That even the most motivated, most engaged people, I mean, we had 8,000 people working for my company in Zensar. And I remember we had signed up for 3,000 courses on e-learning. 250 were used at the end of the year. The people just found it boring. They wouldn't engage. But when you got a great teacher across, they would. So even, in fact, in recent times, we've been dabbling very much in AI. In fact, we're doing a lot of work with the government of India because all the ASHA workers, as you maybe know, who are people engaged in healthcare, need to be trained, and we actually we had to create almost 1 million COVID sathis across the country. People in the rural India who could have enough information to counsel somebody who was looking at symptoms of corona or COVID and engage with them. And the Ministry of IT actually came to us and said, look, can you use really engaging technology, language agnostic, to make them successful? And we did that. I mean, we used augmented reality, virtual reality, very successful experiments. And even recently, I was talking to Minister Chandrasekhar just 2 days ago and telling him about this experiment. So we are finding that even people who were otherwise finding it difficult to engage, and we're not talking about IIM Nagpur kind of MBA students, but even people who had never learned something before can be engaged better with technology. So the point is, we got very inspired by that. And over the last couple of years, we've been actually investing close to 10 crores in taking that HBX experiment, taking all the new technologies available and putting it together. So for instance, one of the experiments we have tried is just kind of replicating the mind of the learner. Because the mind, and this is more in the corporate context. So I'll explain the corporate context and we can transcribe that to the university context. So when you look at a typical corporate student, I mean, somebody has finished his, let's say, engineering in XYZ, PIT, wherever, PICT in Pune or wherever. So he's kind of feeling entitled, finished all that, joined Infosys and say, okay, now my life is made. Now, if you read Noel Harari, I mean, Harari says that, look, every 15 years, your job will be obsolete. So you better keep learning. I mean, which is the reason why people like me finish my mechanical engineering, do my industrial engineering, do my PhD in IIT Bombay, and then go on to Harvard Business School. Because we really believe that we got to refresh our life. But not everybody has that kind of motivation. So what happens is, at some point of time, they start falling behind. Or they find that, look, they are not, if you look at our own industry, the IT industry, which now employs close to 50 lakh people, the biggest attrition point is 2 to 3 years down the line. The person says, look, I'm not learning anything new. I mean, the glamour of joining the Infosys and the TCS has faded away. And what the hell am I doing here? I might as well do something else. Okay. So I think what we said is we really need to engage in providing career options. So today, a lot of technology is available where an employee can sit in front and the bot, okay, completely voice enabled, will talk to him or her and say, what do you really want to do? And he'd say, look, I'm a programmer today, but I believe there's something going on let's say, digital technology. I'd love to learn more about that. So almost immediately, the last 2 years appraisal comes up and the AI bot tells him that, look, you are today ready in 1 year's time to get promoted to maybe a programmer analyst. But if you really want to move into digital transformation and understand Internet of Things, etc., you're probably 80% not ready, which means you got to learn. Whereas if you just want to stay on your career path, maybe 20% learning will do. What's your choice? So the student is making an intelligent choice, not the student, the employee, saying, I really want to be in digital. I'm willing to put in that effort to really become the IoT specialist of tomorrow. So he's already fallen into the trap because this is now voluntary. On his own volition, he's saying, I want to learn more. Then you can look at, today, of course, adaptive learning enables you to look at the learning pedagogy, which is suited to the psyche of the student. We're really saying that, look, if somebody learns better by watching interesting video, then show him video. If somebody learns better by, or is more motivated and can actually read books, you can show him that. So you can choose the choice of pedagogy, the choice of courses, and deliver it to the person based on their learning style. And you can keep adapting as you go. And once you do this, the person is already on a skills path, and the AI bot, whom they can name, can literally guide him saying, okay, here is where you are. Now it was 80% shortfall. Now you're 40%, and you're getting there. And then comes a very interesting part to my mind, because as I said, it's also peer group learning. And even in this, the most exciting format, lots of bots, etc., you'll still feel interest flagging, and you can actually watch it in terms of the attention span, which AI will point out that in this course, the attention was not very good, which is why it took longer. So the minute you do that, immediately then you have peer group. So you say, look, here are 3 other people in this organization who followed a similar path. Would you like to engage with them and talk to them about their experiences? So that again arouses interest. It's like my daughter in Cambridge and the 8% tutorial. So suddenly 4 people are into a classroom, or into a Zoom session, if you will. And they're engaging and saying that, look, okay, what's been your experience? And suddenly the excitement level again goes up. Then the bot will ask him, hey, do you need a mentor? So they'll find somebody with, as all of us now know, a mentor is no longer a 57-year-old person who will lecture the young employee and say, when I was your age, this is what I am. People say, please, I never want to be your age. Okay, let's face it, folks. This is the reality of students today. So the best mentors, and I'm not talking about reverse mentoring here, the best mentor is somebody who's 3 years older than me, okay, who's already in a different generation, but still somebody I can kind of align to. He dresses like me, talks like me, etc. So that mentor can then engage with the person. And then finally, you can say that, look, now I'm a real corporate citizen. I've learned a lot using this platform. And then I can then start doing reverse mentoring, but I can then start mentoring somebody who's older than me, younger than me, less motivated, etc. I have a very good friend, and I'll kind of stop with this example, a guy called Martin Migoya. Martin Migoya was an Argentinian footballer, like everybody we know in Argentina. But he and a bunch of his colleagues in Buenos Aires set up an outstanding company called Globit. I don't want to be a traitor to my own breed. So I'm not kind of downplaying the Infosys and the TCS and the Wipros. But Globant, to my mind, is the quintessential digital company. $400 million company, about the size of my previous company's NSAR, trading at almost $2 billion market cap on the New York Stock Exchange. They're just outstanding in terms of the kind of adaptive learning work and the kind of AR, VR work they do. And today I was talking to Martin about when COVID started. And I said, look, Martin, you have all these brilliant digital guys. How do you get them to engage? He says, look, do you know what is the best learning method even in an organization? It's when you go for coffee or you meet somebody at the coffee machine and then he says something you like and then you go for a drink in the evening. And in that 20-minute chat, the most innovation happens, much more than you can train people to do. So he said, we're now just trying to simulate that experience. Let's say if 200 people are working in a work group and you can transcribe the same thing to students, and it's pretty obvious. Then you find that, look, somebody has loved a Pink Floyd song called Wish You Were Here, okay, which somebody else sitting maybe 5 countries away has also loved. So clearly there's a connection there. So AI will then explore what is the kind of social media footprint that these two people have, and it'll make a suggestion. Every Friday they have a 1 hour when it's almost like a blind dating, if you understand what I'm saying here. So they'll say, look, why don't you talk to Jose from Mexico? So we have maybe something interesting for you to share. And Rahul from India is saying, why on earth would I talk to Jose from Mexico? AI says, believe me, you might have an interesting conversation. And it'll prompt him 3 questions to ask Jose. What do you like in Wish You Were Here of Pink Floyd? Completely unconnected to curriculum. And suddenly they find, Jose and Rahul find, hey, there's something a lot in common, and innovation begins to happen. I was like amazed. Imagine this completely off the wall example. Okay, now I'll stop here. Now translate that back to IIM Nagpur or anywhere else for that matter. So imagine if you could use this high touch or high tech to really get into learning pedagogies, could really get into reading the mind of the student, like I explained in HBX. And then we come up with a completely new learning model. I mean, suddenly the NEP that we are reading will look obsolete because the National Education Policy talks about technology being used. But are we exciting our students? So my simple point is, I really hope, Professor Maitri, I mean, you're a visionary yourself, that people like you should start now exploring deeper into technology. And we should really say, let's make our students not tech gurus. We don't want to create more tech nerds, okay? But we want people who really enjoy technology, who enjoy interaction, who realize that human beings are all about social interaction. And we will use technology, we will use AI, we will use AR, we will use IoT as enablers of this. So I'd like to conclude by saying, I truly believe we are at the cusp of a revolution. Okay, like in any other revolution, 80% will not get it. Okay, they'll just wonder what happened. But there will be 20% of the student community, of the faculty members, and of course, of institutions like IIM Nagpur and the Great Lakes, who will start experimenting at the frontiers of technology. And I think they will start building the new generation of learners and professionals who will really take this country. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ganesh. Very insightful, and you have given us a picture of the future. The vision of the future, and what it can be. What are the possibilities? What's potential? And also, you pointed out the shortcomings of e-learning and how that can be rectified. But given your short amount of time that you're going to be with us, I have some questions that taps into your expertise, domain knowledge with regard to artificial intelligence. For example, in the 1960s or 1970s, when we talked about artificial intelligence, they were using some test phrases like, a translation. So one of the test phrases, if I remember, was out of sight, out of mind. Okay. And then you translate it through, put it through a chain of translations, and then it came back as blind idiot. Okay? So which is technically correct. I mean, but it misses the point. Okay, it misses the context and the intent behind that. Now I tried the same thing. Okay, 3 or 4 days ago, I took the same test phrase and put it through a number of translations, including Punjabi, Hindi, Bangla, Spanish, and back to English. Now it said, when eyes are closed, mind is covered. Okay? Which is certainly an improvement, okay, over blind idiot. But what I'm trying to point out is we still have some ways to go with regard to AI. And so there are some limitations. And so I just want to find out from you, for example, most of the successful applications of AI have been in companies which have access to data. They're sitting on piles of user-generated data like Facebook and Google, and they also have tremendous resources in terms of programmers for algorithms development. And then they also have computing resources. Okay? Amazon, AWS is basically the founding of cloud. So But then what about the typical company? How do they even do a ROI or cost benefit analysis for AI? For example, in our own institution, we use AI, like Grammarly, which is a personal writing assistant, and we use PitchVantage to give feedback to students on their presentations. And then, of course, like you mentioned about career prediction, we also use AI to predict, student success. Are they going to be successful in a particular program, in a particular major, and what kind of choices are available, so they can make some informed decisions about their majors and about their the courses they want to take or they should be taking. So the thing is, how does one even think about? But we don't think about ROI in an educational institution, okay? Because most of these things are funded out of student fees. But the point is, in real business, typical business, they have to do some ROI calculation. So what are your thoughts on that? And the second question I have, let me ask all my questions so you can answer them. The second question I have is regarding regulation of AI. Because, if you recall, many years ago, Isaac Asimov wrote a book called I, Robot, and he came up with 3 laws for robotics. It is still being used as a template or a blueprint, okay, even though it has become a little bit outdated. So are there going to be regulations on AI with relation to privacy, in relation to data security and so on and so forth?
Okay, so let me just give you a couple of points, and I don't want to, because the question you have asked, Professor Natarajan, it can take me 2 hours to respond. So you don't want to. So if I have to do this in the next 3 minutes, let me. First of all, I think all of us must realize, and I think we realize it intuitively, but sometimes we don't put it into practice, that artificial intelligence cannot be a substitute for human stupidity. Okay, that's not the idea. So the minute people think that, oh, AI will now, we have a bunch of dodos working for us and AI will kind of solve all those problems, it's not happen. And if I give you a parallel in robotics, for instance, even robotics, people like in India, we always worry first. We think, oh my God, robots will come and nobody will have a job. AI will come and all the banks will have to shut down their teller operations, etc. It's just not true. I mean, history bears it out that technology has never, in the medium term, eliminated jobs. It's created more jobs, high value adding jobs. So if I'll give you an example, I do a lot of work in China, which I now talk in whispers about because China is a bad word in India at this point of time. But I mean, one of my clients is in Shenzhen, and as many of you know, Shenzhen has for decades been the electronics manufacturing capital of the world. And I remember, when I first visited my client in Shenzhen, it's almost 12 years ago, like any Shenzhen facility, they employed 3,000 women, all doing microprocessor assembly, and typical highly disciplined Chinese women who would come in the morning, have a 15-minute lunch break, their 3 cups of tea, put their head down at 1 o'clock, sleep for half an hour, and they'd work. When I went back about 4 years ago, and I was still talking about it, they had completely implemented robotics. So, but not for a minute by saying that we'll completely robotize everything. Instead of 3,000 women, they now have 1,200 low-cost robots, 300 women. Each woman is now co-managing 4 robots. Productivity has gone up twice. Surely the employment has come down. But the same women are now working collaboratively with the robots. And the reason I'm giving you this robotic example is the same thing is going to happen with AI. And I think Professor Balachandran actually mentioned the word augmentative. See, even if you look at AI, you can either have autonomous AI, which is what everybody is afraid of in this country. You could have assistive AI, which is really helping, like the HBX example is assistive AI. You're assisting a super professor on managing the administrative part of his class. And you could have augmentative AI. Augmentative AI is the example I gave you for this platform that I told you that we are ourselves building, or for that matter, the Globant example of getting this, different people to come together for a coffee break because you kind of understood their psyche. So I think that is what will change. So my own belief is, as we go along, we will try and get more and more augmenting capabilities of technology to work. But intelligence of the designer lies in this, looking at what is there and how do we not eliminate the human being. I mean, the classic example is, of course, Amazon, for instance. I mean, Amazon, right from the beginning, today when you look at when you watch something on Netflix, it will tell you, I mean, I'm sure any of you are doing Netflix, every 2 days you'll get a movie that you might like is now available on Netflix. It's kind of pushing you to watch it. Okay. And similarly, Amazon. People like you also bought this book. Now, the problem is that it'll almost, it's what is called, what we call in AI, reinforcement bias. That by telling you this is what you liked in the past, and by the way, this is what you should be buying, you're kind of reinforcing and putting you in a little silo. So we are very worried about reinforcement bias. So we are really saying that even AI should understand that people want to do new things. And you shouldn't push people into a little guardrail and not allow them to do anything else. So I'm just giving you one example. There are almost like 50, 60 rules like this of applying what I said earlier, commonly available technology uncommonly well. Look at unique applications, but do not take the negative portion of any digital technology and put that. So, I mean, that's why I said it'll take me 2 hours to give you more examples. But I think, especially people who are managing outstanding institutions like yours, I think you should really look at not only the administration, but also the members of the faculty and the students being exposed to this kind of blue sky thinking. But I think then we'll become better in education, as I said, better as a country. So thank you. I know I've overextended my time, so I'll still be here for some time, but please back to Professor Bala.
Thank you. Yeah, and we can probably continue this discussion offline later.
Oh, anytime, sir. I mean, Professor, I'm a great fan of Professor Mehta. Anytime you want, sir, I'll be in Nagpur and we'll spend half a day.
Sure. Yeah, it was great having you on the panel. Yeah.
Sure, I'll still be around for some time.
Getting good insights. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Okay, so if you have maybe, so I just want to point out that what Dr. Ganesh has mentioned about the bias or the negative aspects of AI, that bias can be embedded in AI, and it's not obvious. Okay, it's not obvious, so it has to be very carefully thought out, during the design stage. And the thing is, again, AI is very efficient in a very narrow thing in terms of tasks and repetition and so on. But if you give it something really out of the ordinary, for example, during COVID, most of the airlines, their chatbots were really useless because they could not answer questions regarding cancellations, what is the COVID policy. So sometimes it is better not to use those chatbots at all and lead to customer frustrations rather than have the chatbots, just because you want to show that, you are using high tech. I mean, it's like our students. I mean, you give them something that is not covered in the exam, then they get, then they're lost. At least some of them are. Okay, so you got to be careful. So let's not use these AI for applications or situations where they're not intended to be. So being aware of that is, I think, very important. So at this point, I would like to get back to Dr. Bala. Sorry for the interruption there. So I would like to ask him a question regarding, there is one discussion point regarding stakeholders, multiple stakeholders, and in multiple sectors, how they can strengthen HT, okay, optimization, or as Dr. Bala would put it, more open-ended, okay, not really constrained. So for example, with more and more, for example, US, many full-time MBA programs, they're not able to sustain them. They're shutting down. University of Illinois started this trend. They're followed by other schools like Wake Forest and Purdue and others. They are very respected schools. They're very well regarded, but they're simply not able to, the economics doesn't make sense. So these full-time MBA programs have become costly, both for the provider as well as for the students. So in that case, that strategy is to switch to online, okay, and provide low cost to the students. So if you're going to have students going through these online programs and graduating, and they've never met a faculty member, they've never interacted with their peers, in that case, what kind of loyalty are they going to have to the institution? So if they become alumni, today's students become our future alumni, tomorrow's alumni. So what kind of alumni relationships can we have with them? And also, I mean, how do we approach them 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when they become successful business leaders to make a contribution to the institution? So what are some of the challenges that you're facing, or what do you think can be the way institutions can deal with that?
Okay, I will come to that, but I want to have the discussion with the Ganesh brought in this artificial intelligence. I do not know how many of you know, 25 years back, an Indian lady by name Dr. Devika Subramaniam did in Stanford the very first thesis on artificial intelligence 25 years back. And you may know Raj Reddy, etc. Same group. Now she is now the head of the computer science in Rice University. But my point is very simple. Why that was invented now, then, is now taking such a big name? Because at that time, if somebody defined artificial intelligence is sequential conditional probabilities, and where the experiment updates the posterior probability and Bayes theorem, nobody will believe that. That is what it is. Because now the technology allowed you to store mass data, to process mass data in microseconds. And Netflix or anything, if you look at it, there is some belief, prior probability, some assumption, tested with an experiment, and then posterior probability, and that is used and are continuously updated. But that was then updated once in 3 months. Now once in nanoseconds or once in microseconds, and it can go. So the storage, the processing, and then the cloud, and then definitely the big data, all converged only 3 years back. Let me tell you one thing, which is very important. I have a heart patient. Many of you do not know this. This level, small microchip. Now, if you get a heart attack, there is a possibility you can get a second heart attack or a stroke. But they are only after you know the symptoms, chest pain, this, that, etc. Now this chip is going to give the data, storage, transmission, communication in my body, implanted 4 days back, to my doctors, to a huge database, such that I don't need to be reactive to the symptoms, but can be proactive and preventive. And my heart attack coming with the symptoms where the doctor has 3 minutes, 3 hours, I have to go to the emergency. I have 6 days. I can travel 18 hours in a plane. I can have a heart attack and still alive. Because he can fix wherever the doctor is. I am in the plane. What is that? Nothing but artificial intelligence, Internet of Things. Now, what more you are going to get? Saving lives. So look at that. If a doctor and you have 6 days in advance, when you know without a symptom that you are going to get a heart attack 6 days from now, I can do wonders. Like that, this sensor, this whole thing is going to change life and create more jobs, create more value, create more life. Unfortunately, people will live more than 100 years. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? That's another story. But the point is, what you are going to see in the next 3 years, you cannot even imagine. And what people from anywhere, including India, India has the manpower and also creative power, but no opportunities. So all we have to do, partner with some, whether it is Gilead or Pfizer or Abbott Labs, and they are going to take these people at a lower price and create wonders. So now coming back to your question, yes, there is going to be a tremendous problem disruptive, not pedagogy. When I said 3 years undergraduate program and only 1 year MBA program, it is going to create some headache. University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, Wisconsin, so many good schools, completely taking off the whole thing. My brother Sinu Srinivas is in Stanford, retired marketing one, probably the best researcher in marketing, not necessarily best book writer, that is Scotland. But anyway, best researcher, all right? Cutting edge, same thing. My son is the MBA director after Harvard MBA and Columbia Associate Dean in University of Illinois here. Now it is possible that the only way to do this MBA is not only rich people who can afford the luxury of time and money may go to the full-time offline brick and mortar place. But millions of people, even from Congo, whatever place you want, Timbuktu, can do a Harvard MBA. MIT has announced that you can stay wherever you are, take our courses, but you have to take your courses free. But if you want our degree, staying in Manamai, where my school is there. So MIT is going to compete with Great Lakes. MIT from Cambridge or Boston and me from Chennai are going to attack the same students. And they are going to give approximately the same price. This is going to happen. So that you are right, sir, asking the question, stakeholders. But at the same time, people come to India and teach maybe only once if you are not an Indian. After they see the Taj Mahal and all kinds of things, then they remember only the person urinating on the wall and making pollution of kind man-made in the road. They won't go, but they can stay there and do it. So we are going to have a massive conference of Indian professors and create a network of Indian professors and the US professors to start with Indian faculty in US like me, but it ends with everybody. A lot of Americans are interested in India. Now it is no more serpents and software and sadhus. All right, it is now technology enables that. So now the world is going to be a village, and you don't have to go anywhere. People can do joint research, so that is going to happen. So yes, so therefore, if you don't have an online, at least as a blended learning. So for example, we thought about 6 years back, this technology is going to dominate. And therefore, we wanted to have an online MBA program. Accidentally, that's how we created Great Learning to do that. It's a different purpose. Guess what? That is going, so this moose is going to make everything available. So, and similarly, problem solving, experiential learning. The experiential learning can be even research. For example, entrepreneur, you don't teach too much emphasis. Now, if everybody is not ready for 2 jobs, they are not going to have a job. 1 job on a standby basis. In case I am fired, I know my classmates, 3 of us are going to create this particular company because I was trained in Great Lakes through this Atal Innovation Mission thing, how to start, create a business in less than 3 months. I'm ready, but I do not want it. I want to have riskless, definite cash flow so that I can pay my debt. But if I am thrown out, I am not going to moan and groan. Who knows? I may make millions. It may be a blessing in disguise. I want to make 2 points in my talk before this. I do not know whether you know, when the World War II came up, all the men were taken away and all the factories have to be run. Who did that? First time in the history, many factories were completely run using only females. They no. The necessity is the mother of invention. So they put them. Guess what? The women performed better than, on time and ahead of time, and also less than budget. So unless you test something, forced to test, COVID make you forced to test online. Same story, Waterloo Bridge, completely done by women, and they were not trained for that. So if you are forced and there is no other choice, guess what? It outperforms. Similarly, online, we think it may not be effective, but to some courses, online can be more effective than offline. Certain courses, offline can be more. So that's why I said the power of hand. You need to do that. So I think every business school will have an online segment going parallelly, and they will diversify the risk. And if it so happens the whole world is moving toward online, they can jumpstart. This is called money value of time. If you don't do it now, you may be a Harvard, but nobody wants you. Because I can get better than Harvard custom books. Previously, one textbook, one author. Now I can have 5 different publishers, 10 different authors, select that chapter from this book, custom publish it. Mass, somebody used the word, mass customize. Mass customization. And guess what? 2 days later, Chinese will copy, no copyright, they will do everything. The government itself will sell. And you cannot do. That will also exist. If you try to say intellectual property, they will say, go to hell. Who is going to say? President. He won't say, he will do it. And we have nothing to do with that. Cartler's book is Xeroxed like crazy and put it in a pen drive. What Cartler gets? 0. You can go to any court. I don't care. That is, and we have to fight them. I fought as a captain in 1962 in Chinese attack in Ladakh. And he was almost killed. That is why Great Lakes insists on Chinese language, nothing else. Because next war is coming. At that time, our fellows know Chinese language. They will not tell them that they know Chinese language. They act as they do not know anything, but learn. This time, the ball game is different. Just because they are more prepared. Unlike the Krishna Menon and the Nehru's, whatever. Anyway, I think I answered your question. If there is any other question, I will take it. Otherwise, I also want to say goodbye to Maitri.
So Bala, you have been you epitomized lifelong learning. You always try to learn new things. You've experimented, and from teaching academics to institution building and all that. So I would ask this question now: that if you were to start all over again with regard to GLIM, so what would you do differently?
I see GLIM is a moving target. The GLIM's pedagogy and teaching now is completely different from 2004 when I started. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to watch the whole world using my artificial intelligence, which augmented intelligence. I will know what is going to be in process 3 years from now, and I will be the first mover to teach that. There are a lot of things the students do not know, and that is general knowledge. Technology is needed. I think the business schools, my students are very good in technology, etc. Ask them some who is uh, Abraham Lincoln. Oh, he is in Hong Kong, right? Lincoln Su. No, there is an Abraham Lincoln. Do not know. A grade. How about that? I think we have to know general knowledge because the entire education will be interdisciplinary and they are going to merge. You cannot have good knowledge without economics, but at the same time, good knowledge without general knowledge. We don't teach that. And people like Gopal of Tata Group, what the business school do not teach. He teaches that. So I am pushing, and similarly, there is a money dominates in many business schools, but I put them with 27 villages adopting it. We give root canal treatment, everything free to the villages, adopted that. And I call it as Karma Yoga. Every student on Thursday will not be in the campus. They will be in the villages. Otherwise, arrogance sets in. This is 65% of India. If you do not know what is this customer, and C.K. Prahlad is right in bottom of the pyramid. I don't like the word bottom. I would have used the word base of the pyramid. India's base is average and poor people. I come from that life. I didn't have more than even one square meal when I was a young boy. But now the world is changed. You can make money anywhere. The only thing is the following. There are not only continuous learning and make that learning earning also. Why I want you to earn? Because the total white money in the world is constant. There are two groups of people, you and I, honest living. But there are thieves, thugs, terrorists, mafiosos, and Donald Trump. Ask the question, is the money in their hands better or in your hands better? So if somebody says making money and being materialistic is anti-spiritualistic, I will tell them bullshit. If you don't make money, you are a sinner because you are helping the terrorists to make the money. But that money should be returned because when you die, you cannot even take your name. Your first name is dead, last name is body. You are all equal. There are only two coverings, God-given, the skin color, man-made, that is the dress. After the covering, we are all equal. So my point is make the money maximum, but no, you will not take anything with you. So return the money. Earn to return, OEAR. And that's what I teach everybody. I have given I was suffering for money at one time, struggling. My college education was given by a philanthropist at the school. Now, each year I am making about 700 full-time MBAs, making a lot of money. The father is assumed. Actually, one guy got 41 lakhs. Sir, there must be a typographical error. It must be 14 lakhs. No, he got 41. So you trained him. You do not know how you trained your father, son. So the question is, you can do if you put your money, honest money. And I want you to make the maximum honest money. If you don't make it, the other guys will make it. If they make it, death, destruction, and disaster. If you make it, Great Lakes and others. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Bala. I'm still learning. Many years ago, it was constrained optimization. Now I'm learning about unconstrained thinking, especially from kids, millennials, and others. So when MBA programs do focus groups, they should think about the next generation. They should take their views into account. Probably some of it is already happening in terms of gamification and trying to make learning more fun and more engaging, like Dr. Ganesh mentioned, how you can leverage technology, artificial intelligence for all that. So, you have, as I said, you have been a living example of lifelong learning. So I'm still learning from your interactions. In fact, I've learned so much that Dr. Maitri, you must probably give me an MBA, okay? If I submit all my notes, and it's like drinking from a fire hose. I mean, there's so many insights, so many things I've learned that I probably deserve a degree, especially from IIM Nagpur, which will be very gratifying to me. So again, I think in the interest of time, very quickly, I'm just going to just give some key words from Mr. Rekhy. New business models, crisis management, start looking for opportunities to offer courses in the MBA program which serve the immediate need, like, mental health, dealing with stress. So COVID has provided that opportunity. And from Dr. Bala, it'll again be innovation. It'll be, free to explore, free to try new things. And then very important point that he made towards the end, that is, try to give things money away, try to give whatever you've earned away and pay something back to society. There is no point being the richest man in the cemetery, so to speak. And then again, from Dr. Ganesh, he painted a vision of the future in terms of how you can make, e-learning, more engaging and more, more exciting to students, and overcome some of the limitations. And also pointed out some of the things you can do with AI and what we cannot do with AI. So that is very quickly my summing up. So again, I learned so much. Okay, there's so much going on in this panel. So I would like to turn things over to Professor Sinha for her closing remarks.
Thank
And
you.
before that, let me share one slide here, and that will kind of capture my thoughts here. Okay. All of you have a great,
Happy Independence Day. Happy Independence Day.
Thank you all. I enjoyed being a moderator and connecting with all of you.
Jai Hind.
Thank you. Thank
Yes,
you so
yes, Pramali.
much. Thank you so much. I don't know. I mean, these master classes, wow. I wouldn't otherwise get an opportunity to meet all of you and just imagine the kind of knowledge, wisdom. I don't know what to say. Like, thank you, Maitri sir, for starting this and getting the whole globe here. So this is very beautiful, sir. Thank you very much for that. Yes, there were several takeaways, and I can see a lot of questions are also being asked over here, which people have addressed in their talk. But what really touched me was the fact that there was a time when we were talking about technology, and we forgot that managers need to be human. And thank God that is now back here. And like Mr. Rekhy also said, that we need human managers. We have machines, and together, I think we can bring in the right sensibility of empathy, compassion, and drive all the businesses and the daily social life also. So Mr. Rekhy was reading an article, an interview of yours. So I thought, I'll bring a few words from there for the group over here. because we all want to take this forward in our own way. You've asserted that servant leadership is going to be very important and game changing for all of us. So as institution involved in education sector, I think we also need to look inwards and introspect and become social servant leaders to our students. And there's a book, The Heart of Business by Matt Hayes and Jeff Stevens, where they've said the inescapable truth is this: as the heart goes, so goes all of life. That foundational truth not only guides and impacts every personal human life, but it also profoundly impacts modern business and its leadership. Today, it is no secret that millennials and even younger Gen Z want to work for purpose driven organizations and be a part of a bigger picture. So, while the concept is really basic and fundamental, the hard reality is only a handful of leaders and businesses are truly driven by purpose. So, majority of them merely pretend to be. And I think the final words that Mr. Balachandran said was the same: give it back. So that's beautifully culminated. And I now invite Dr. Ravi Jain to say his vote of thanks, gratitude. I think it's too small a note right now because we're very, very grateful for this synergy that we have just received. Over to you, Dr. Jain.
Thank you, Saloni, and what a session it is.
Absolutely.
As expected, we started on a fantastic note with the first webinar when we explored the idea of higher education with a long shot. When somebody said talking about 2035 is too much of a speculation, but I think we nailed the point there last month. And today I think we have extended it seamlessly, fantastically. My gratitude, my thanks to all the panelists today. Professor Bala, I mean, it's a treat to listen to you as always. And I still remember, one of the chats that I enjoyed with you in Delhi when you were in one of the ICSSR programs. And that's where you also insisted on the human element of technology going forward. And you have reiterated that today, very relevant for high tech and high touch. Richard Rekhy, such a pleasure to have you on the platform. We connected. Thanks, Professor Maitri, for actually bringing you on the board. We really enjoyed the insightful thoughts that you have shared today. Thank you so much, sir, for sparing your time. And Ganesh Natarajan ji is not here, but Rahul, please convey our thanks to her. Thanks to Mr. Natarajan. Such an insightful talk. In fact, we should have a dedicated session by him on certain technology aspects of designing the classroom part. This session, as you all know, was moderated by the Americas division of ISDSI Global.
Wow.
ISDSI Global has 5 regions. Americas region is headed by, or president of Americas region is Dr. Natarajan. Such a fantastic moderation you have done today, sir. Point well driven home. Thank you so much once again, sir. And special thanks to CPG, despite his busy schedule. He said, I will sneak in for 5-10 minutes. You have to excuse me and all. But he came, he spent some time with us and did share his opening remarks by setting the right tone for the session, making the session all the more special. Saloni, as usual, you are excellent in the way you have conducted the entire session. And my thanks to the entire team of Rahul, Jain, ASMA, FMA, and everyone for seamlessly organizing it technology wise, no jerks anywhere, no this thing. So this is a kind of a living example of high tech part, and the sessions that we are doing is high touch. And for the audience information, it is already given in the chat box. The next session would be on 14th September, where we will be extending the topic, and we'll be talking about restructuring business schools for rapid innovation and for absorbing rapid adaptation and innovation. Restructuring B schools for rapid adaptation and innovation. Do sign up, and I'm sure you will enjoy that session too, as you have enjoyed today. Thank you so much once again, the entire team. And I don't know if I can use words enough to thank Professor Maitri for providing such a grand vision and giving such a grand beginning. And for everything that he thinks in wholesale and big size. Scale is the key with him. So many a times we get overwhelmed, but yes, you push us and you make things happen. Thank you so much for the energy and for the vision that you bring forth on the table all the time. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, the audience, for being today with us this evening and making this webinar a grand success. Thank you so much. And
Thank
see you on
you.
14th September.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm already so excited. Restructuring these schools for rapid adaptation and innovation. It's so exciting to see this. 11th of September, it's a Saturday. Saturdays are the best days now for me, you know. And I'm sure everybody would like to join in with their cup of coffee and tea and whatever. And they cannot just miss restructuring these schools for rapid adaptation and innovation. It's 11th September, 4:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Details will soon reach you. And I'm sure everybody had a great time today. And do remember that these platforms are helping us grow and helping us remain purpose driven. So embrace a higher purpose. It is very transformative.
Saloni, my special thanks to Professor Chaturvedi for for the full support that BIMTech extends to all the programs of ISDSI Global. My deepest gratitude.
Yes, and I'm indeed very lucky that he allows me to be here on behalf of my organization. And that's true, sir. As I said, embracing higher purpose at both individual and organization levels. And that's the reason why ISDSI is, really the best place these days for all of us. So thank you so much, everybody. Have a great dinner, but don't forget that you must come back to ASMA platforms and see what they're doing. And as SIBM Hyderabad, BIMTech Greater Noida, along with a leader like Dr. Bhima Rai Maitri, sorry, I'm just growing each day. So thank you very much. Immensely grateful, Dr. Ramachandran, Mr. Balachandran, Mr. Richard Rekhy, Rahul Jain, Ravi sir. Immensely grateful for this day. Thank you.
Happy Independence Day to all. Happy Independence Day and have a great weekend.
Happy Independence Day
to everybody.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
75th year of India. I'm sure the transformation at the education level. So that's what we are set out for. Thank you, Maitri sir, for leading us.
Thank you very much and namaskar. Very happy Independence Day, Bala and Richard Rekhy sir.
The future in Ravi Jain sir's fame.
He just popped up. I can't help it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank
Rahul,
you.
we can close this session.